Welcome to part 2 of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Just finish up with part 1, REXIT, the exit of Rex Ryan. Rex Ryan gets his walking papers today, this afternoon. The 2-year head coach for the Buffalo Bills. How does a team expect to get any better when they are firing their head coach on pace to 2 years, on average of 2 years? It is unfathomable. The fact that this team thinks that they will get any better as long as they are hiring and firing head coaches. It is the ass-backwards way of doing things. One thing that I wanted to bring up, and it's in talking about Doug Whaley. I've talked about Doug Whaley so much over the last, couple years. And I've called for his head, not his head, I should say. I've called for his job to be, replaced, for him to be replaced. For the last couple seasons. And, obviously the first thing that comes to mind is the Sammy Watkins trade. The second thing that comes to mind is, actually the first thing that comes to mind is the E.J. Manuel pick. The second thing that comes to mind is the Sammy Watkins trade-up pick. The third thing that comes to mind is drafting Shaq Lawson when you know that he is injured and he would miss half of his rookie season. 3 drafts, 3 huge mistakes in the first round for Doug Whaley. How? How is this possible that Doug Whaley still has his job? Kevin Sylvester, Buffalo Sabres broadcaster, said Rex Ryan is a victim of his own ego, changed a defense that didn't need changing, and then relied on his scheme too much. What was he supposed to do? Was he supposed to just throw his reputation completely out the window? Throw the scheme that was taught to him by his father completely out the window? No, that's not what he was going to do. The Buffalo Bills knew what they were getting when they hired Rex Ryan. They were getting a 4-6 defense with 3-4 wrinkles to it. What they made him do was hybrid the defensive scheme to have it be a 4-6/3-4/4-3 scheme / wide 9 scheme. Wide 9 meaning that the defensive ends would be wider and it would allow the safety to blitz or the linebacker to blitz or more space for the linebackers to come in. Those that don't say, I don't know anything about football, look it up. You probably don't even know what that is. So, that being said, Andy Young of the Time Warner Cable Sports News said, perhaps the decision on Tyrod Taylor's contract is just as important as the Rex firing. His reported benching makes me think he's gone too. He probably is gone. He's probably going to be gone. The fact that they would bench him in this game to avoid paying that disastrous, unfathomable, laughable contract bonus that they gave him in August that I chastised on this show for weeks on end. People said that I was harsh on Tyrod. People said that I needed to relax. People said that I was closed-minded, that I was rooting for Tyrod to fail so that my point would be right. That's the dumbest thing I've probably ever heard. I don't root for people to fail, especially in the case of them being on the team that I'm rooting for to succeed. I just know talent when I see it, and he's not. He's talented on the feet. He can't throw. He has quick feet. He's an athletic quarterback, but he cannot throw. Worse than that, he's afraid to throw, and that's why Tyrod Taylor needs to go. The contract is too much. That's a side problem. But the fact that he can't throw is why he needs to go more than anything. Starting salary-wise, for a starting quarterback, that's actually not that bad of a contract for $12 million. But it's not worth it. He's not the guy. He can't stay healthy. He gets dinged up throughout the season. Even if he's playing, he's never playing healthy. He needs to go. It has to happen. Matt Perino, a good buddy of mine from the UFC, a Buffalo native, tweeted, Bills fans will look back on this day in a few years and cringe if Taylor is let go. Mark my words. He was retweeting a tweet from Adam Schefter, the ESPN insider. Adam Schefter said, to sum up, Bills have fired Rex and Rob Ryan and in a business decision benched their starting quarterback Tyrod Taylor. They had to. They didn't have a choice. It's a smart business decision. And it's a decision that led to Rex Ryan being fired. Rex Ryan standing by Tyrod Taylor was the final nail in his coffin. And anyone that disagrees with that does not know the situation. He wanted Tyrod to start this game. Doug Whaley said no. Doug Whaley goes to Terry and says, the vision for this team is skewed. Rex wants this. I want this. We need to move forward in making a choice with this matter. And obviously the contract in which Doug Whaley wrote, not Rex Ryan, actually helped Doug Whaley save his job somehow and lead to Rex Ryan being fired. That just dawned on me. The fact that the contract was what scared Terry Pegula, which was what was written by Doug Whaley, led to Rex Ryan being fired because Rex was sticking up for Tyrod, and Doug Whaley was making the case that Tyrod's contract was too fat for him to be their starter in Week 7, for them to take the chance. When Doug Whaley wrote the contract, unbelievable. How is Doug Whaley still a part of this team? Joe Buscaglia from WKBW Channel 7 Sports News says, I've been covering the Bills since 2009. By the time 2016 is done, I will have covered 6 head coaches, 2 of which were interim. That's pathetic. It's pathetic. Ledger Douzable, defensive end / linebacker for the Bills. I'm tired of people talking about the 17-year drought. Rex was here for 2 of those years. Hard to build a winner if the coaches changes every year. It's extremely difficult. It's impossible. It's impossible. You will never win if you don't have continuity. Rex was not the coach for 17 years. He was the coach for 2. The common theme is not the fact that they're hiring bad head coaches. It's from the top front office members within this organization, there is dysfunction between the owner, between the GM, between the scouts. Nobody knows what they're doing. And it's very clear to the fans that don't have degrees in sports management and sports marketing and public relations and whatnot, or economics, which most of these guys are guys of law backgrounds. If it's obvious to the fans, why is it not obvious to a multi-billionaire businessman that bought this team for $1.5 billion when it was rated at a net worth of $800 million? He overspent for this team to save them, to keep them in Buffalo. And yet, he's at a point now where he's hiring his 3rd head coach? This is not hockey. This isn't the Buffalo Sabres. This isn't the NHL. You can't tank in football. It doesn't work that way. It's too schematic. There is too many X's. The X's and O's of the game are too specific compared to hockey. It does not work that way. You can't tank and hope that there's an Andrew Luck every year in the draft, because there's not. There's not a Jack Eichel in every draft. There's not a Connor McDavid in every draft. The timing of it was executed perfectly by the Buffalo Sabres because they were that bad. The Bills, in this case, aren't that bad, but if you're pulling the plug on coaches too early, if you're moving on, changing schemes constantly, then it will be bad. They're saying Lynn is the favorite. Vic Carucci tweeted, This leads me to believe that my last statement was 100% true. Told a toxic environment has existed, quote, from top to bottom of the Bills organization. How much Ryan's firing changes this is uncertain. It won't change it at all, because the people that are responsible for the toxic environment are still working for the Buffalo Bills. Jonah Javad of WGRZ Sports says, Bills head coach Bills head coach Frank Reich has a nice ring to it. I said that a few weeks ago. I said that actually 2 months ago, that the writing was on the wall for Rex to be fired. They wrote Rex off before he even got here. As soon as he said that he wanted to change the defense, his days were numbered. And anyone that disagrees with that, they were numbered. The personnel on this team is weak. The backups are bad. The third stringers are obviously third stringers, but most third stringers on the Buffalo Bills wouldn't even be competing in the National Football League. Most backups on the Buffalo Bills wouldn't even be would be third stringers. And the starters that get hurt, that are glass. They're going to get hurt. And that's what we saw. The Aaron Williams injury, huge blow to the Buffalo Bills. Huge blow because they don't have safeties. They haven't had a good safety since Jarris Byrd left, when, in 2012? Was that 2012? I could be wrong. Could be 2013. Jonah Javad also says, I get Russ Brandon wants to sell tickets, and hiring a celeb coach does that. Do you know the best way to sell tickets? Win. Just win. It's a lot easier said than done. Rex could have helped us win had they been patient. And patient is a word that does not want to be used in the vocab of Buffalo Bills fans, and I understand that better than anybody. I remember watching the Music City Miracle game. I remember hoping that, there would be a next year. And to know that there's been 17 seasons since then, that the Bills have yet to make the playoffs. I'll be 25 in April. 25 years old. Last time the Bills made the playoffs, I was a kid. I was literally a kid. So, I understand it. I get it. But how do you expect to make the playoffs, again, when you are firing coaches left and right? And yes, the defense did regress. Yes, it did. The defense was supposed to be better than what it was. We all know that. We all know that Rex Ryan is a defensive, quote, mastermind. And I think he is. I think he offers a lot of upside on the defensive side of the ball. But the personnel on this team is very bad. We had a GM that gave $110 million to a defensive tackle at that time who was one of the best defensive tackles, maybe the best defensive tackle in all of football. And that guy drag raced. That guy had an alcohol problem, probably a drug problem. Not probably, but could have had a drug problem. That guy missed 4 games, came back out of shape, and re-injured himself, and hasn't been the same since. And I'm talking about Marcel Darius. How is that Rex Ryan's fault? That has nothing to do with Rex Ryan whatsoever. And yet, those errors by the players cause coaches to be fired. And guess what? They have no head coach. Anthony Lynn, for anyone to be optimistic about him being possibly the next Bills head coach, check that at the door, because it's ridiculous. The fact that he was the running backs coach, the fact that he was their offensive coordinator, he has made some really bad play calls over the course of the last few weeks. Most of them were in that Miami game. All I have to say is 2nd and 12, a Reggie Bush reverse. A Reggie Bush reverse. That was Anthony Lynn, folks. That was not Rex Ryan. Rex Ryan wasn't calling the offensive plays. Tyrod Taylor at times, I will say about Tyrod Taylor, and it was in my case to keep him video, he was handicapped. He was handicapped. They would not use him the way that his skill set actually would work in a very advantageous way. And we want that guy to be our next head coach? No. We need somebody that cares about this area. We need somebody that wants to see us win. We need somebody that wants to really rip out the roots from the ground of this team. And I don't know who that is. I really don't. Usually I like to speculate. Usually I like to say this guy's it. Then A, B, C, D, E. I honestly don't even want to. I don't even want to, because half of the guys on those lists, or more than half, if not all of them, give me no excitement whatsoever. They're not guys that make me think, wow, this is the guy that'll lead us to a Super Bowl. Because really, that's the goal. If the goal for everyone is to just make the playoffs, that's sad. That in large part might be why the reason we have sucked the last 17 years. Our goal isn't to win the Super Bowl anymore. It's to make the playoffs. Our goal should be to win the Super Bowl. You have to make the playoffs first, but in the mindset of wanting us to make the playoffs, it's produced mediocrity. And most of the teams that are the wild card teams are mediocre. There's a thought. Part 3 coming up next.